Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Burkus. On the other side of the screen, Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, the Chicago Bears continued to go streaking, now up to 9 straight games. How'd you take it?
Why do I say streaking? I was so excited early in the year when the Bears finally had a winning streak for the first time ever, and that, of course, was ruined. And now we're back on the old familiar losing streaks again. I mean, the game went like I expected. I figured they'd get beat, and I don't care how banged up the Lions defense is. That's just a better team, more talent, better coached. I knew the Bears were going to lose that game, so it's weird watching games where you have no expectations of a win, right? Like at a couple years ago, that was the expectation, but it was for a different reason. Now it's just like, again, we're going to deal with this stuff again. But there were a couple nice standout moments, but that's really all there is to take away. Even these next two. I mean, I'm not expecting nothing. Just get through them healthy, and hopefully Caleb flashes.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of that. But I think what really stood out to me on the rewatch was that you got behind early. You had a couple turnovers, and that train left the station because the other side of the ball is playing really poorly for the Bears and also very well for the Lions. And so now all of a sudden you're down multiple scores. And even though you were, able to show a little bit on offense, it's not enough when you get down early to a really good football team. They're going to just keep racing. So that was sort of the story for me. But we're going to get into this. As always, we start off in the trenches. We'll start off with our trench tribute. And I gotta say, I looked at our show notes. We've got some offensive line talk today. I'm curious where you went here, because the defensive line isn't giving you a lot to cheer for either. So what do you get? What do you got?
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough again this week. I had a couple guys I was going to go with, so I'm going to have one here at the trench tribute. I have one. I'll say one for later for when we do our porridge. I'm going to go Darnell Wright. He's the old reliable. He's out there. He's doing his thing. Nothing really, exceptional what he did. Just, good, sound football. He is who he is. I mean, he's one of your building blocks on your line. You want to see him get better, obviously. But considering where he was drafted, considering his contract, he's going to be one of the building blocks for whoever the head coach is next year.
Yeah, I mean, again, Darnell Wright just continues to show up in this segment time and time again. I think you can pretty much put his name down in pen in this segment every week. So I completely agree with you. I wrote down his name. I thought maybe you'd go with double C Zach Pickins for getting a sack.
I got him a little later.
Okay. Like I loved the it was kind of the weirdest sack that you'd ever get. And then he celebrated but we'll talk about it I guess later. The other name that I had written down was Matt Pryor. And I want to just highlight Matt Pryor because is Matt Pryor a building block? No. Is Matt Pryor a guy that you want taking this many starts on a football team that you want to compete for a play? No. But Matt Pryor has done a pretty good job at coming in at guard. Like he's maybe a little bit more exposed at tackle when he's had to take some tackle snaps. But he's come in and played a professional level at guard when you had counted on Nate Davis at the beginning of the year to be able to fill that position. This Matt Pryor signing is huge, right? Like he has taken a lot of snaps. I mean, I guess I haven't done the math, but I think he might be behind Coleman Shelton, who's taken almost every snap. He's got to be up there, right? Darnell Wright's only missed a little bit of time. Braxton is now going to miss the rest of the year. So he might move ahead of Braxton Jones. I think so. He's getting up there in terms of starts and total snaps. And I think overall he's played at a serviceable level. And I think we need to kind of shout him out here and respect that.
Pryor's either second or third in snaps on the O-line. I was looking the other day. I was curious where Jenkins was because Jenkins missed some time again.
Oh, so I got that later.
I looked to see where Jenkins was at in the list here, and I'm like, oh, I was surprised to see Pryor so far up. But Pryor played some tackle, played some guard. Again, I wasn't really excited when the signing was made. I'm like, oh, he's a guy. He's fine. He could play multiple spots for you. A good fill-in backup. You know what I mean? He's played some in the past. He's had some starts. So at least he's a guy that you can put in and you won't fall off too much. And we talked about the depth, right? The depth of the O-line. We thought the depth would be solid. There weren't a lot of superstars, but we're like, well, the depth overall should be okay. But of course, we were counting on Nate Davis, right? We're counting on a couple other guys to kind of come through. Ryan Bates, right? We're counting on some of these guys to kind of do it. But then as these guys start falling off, that depth, now you're counting on the depth, and now the depth is like there was a guy who played in this last game, the backup center. I have no idea who he is. I mean, obviously he's been on the practice squad. I saw his name on the snap count, so I'm like, who the hell is this? And then I realized, oh, that's the guy that came in for the fullback snap. No idea who he was. I couldn't say. Glasser, maybe his last name was.
Oh, so he got a fullback snap, not
he got a fullback snap for Kramer. He was the guy that I guess they brought him up. They elevated him really late when they realized that Kramer couldn't play. I never saw it come across the wire. I never saw the Bears PR tweet about it. But then they had a fullback in, and I missed it watching live. I didn't really pay attention when I was watching the rewatch, but I knew it wasn't Kramer. And then, like, when I did the snap count article, I'm like, okay, he had one snap. And I realized, oh, that's the guy.
Okay, because I did the O-line. I updated my O-line snaps, and I was like, I didn't have a random guy in the O-line, but if it was, I don't do the fullback snaps.
Wait, are you going to have that about the O-line?
I've got at least one thing.
We're all over the place with the O-line.
I had to update my sheet just to make sure that I was counting this right. But I've got a little nugget that we'll dig into here. So, all right, well, that's Trent's tribute. That is amazing, though, that Coleman Shelton and Matt Pryor are first and third in offensive line snaps this year. If you would have told us that in September, I think we would have slapped you in the face. So you never know what's going to happen in these years for the Chicago Bears. All right, my tweet. We're heading on to the next category, sweet tweets. My tweet is from our friends over at Pride of Detroit. Went on their podcast twice in the last month. Good guys over there. They're having a good year. They're really enjoying things. And both times that I went on there, we had a little Ben Johnson conversation. You know, Lester, how much I like Ben Johnson. I've been talking about him since middle of last year and how much I think the Bears should go after him. Thought that obviously they should have gone after him last year. They came out with a story. Pride of Detroit, at Pride of Detroit, says Ben Johnson is, quote, intrigued and, quote, expected to interview for Bears coaching job. Now, we've also heard from Courtney Cronin and others on the beat that say essentially the same thing. And of course, earlier in the year, we heard that if Ben Johnson is going to interview for a job, he's interviewing with the intent to take that job. He's not just interviewing for fun. He's interviewing because he's serious. So if you put those two pieces of information together, this to me says that Ben Johnson has a decent chance of becoming the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. And if that happens, one, I might be victory lapping a little bit, Lester. And two, there's going to be a lot of upset Detroit Lions fans, as you can tell from the article comments and the comments on Twitter and whatever. And three, Chicago Bears might actually get this mother effer right for once, because this is right in front of them. And so I'm very intrigued by this development. I'm intrigued that Ben Johnson's intrigued.
Ben Johnson is the guy. I mean, he's been the guy that Bears fans, I won't say all, because there's still the holdouts that are looking for Vrabel, right? Ron Rivera, right? He was mentioned this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
But you know what? People are starting to realize that, I mean, look, this is going to be 2025. It's an offensive league. It has been for quite some time. You know, is there a place for a guy like Vrabel? Of course, you know, but this team at this time with a quarterback going into year two, it is not that time. You got to get an offensive guy. Ben Johnson seems to be that guy. And the big thing is, oh, well, who knows if he can be a leader? Who's to say he can't be a leader? You know what I mean? He's been with Dan Campbell, who is one of the most meatball, gritty, bite your kneecap off kind of coach, you know, really hard ass kind of guy. But you don't think Ben Johnson has kind of taken some of that personality from him? You know, Aaron Glenn over there and the defensive side, same thing, kind of has take that personality. That's what happens with these guys. So Ben Johnson's the guy, no brainer. He's the guy. And the fact that you said that he's intrigued, right? He's going to take an interview. That report has come out today. That's a job for him. It makes the most sense. I mean, Look, if again, we say it all the time. If you win in Chicago, you're a legend for life. You know what I mean? The '85 Bears still are revered in the city, and that was a long time ago.
For me, it's all about Caleb Williams. If you're a young offensive mind, if you're an older offensive mind, I mean, Sean Payton talked about how there would be an NFL team that would tank big time, like basically break some unwritten rules to put themselves in a position to take Caleb Williams. He was not employed at that time. This was the year that he was taking off, but he made it pretty clear that he felt like this is the kind of guy that you bend or break those unwritten rules for. And I nothing this year should change your opinion of that, right? Like, yes, the team has not won football games, but there's things that are just collapsing around him, and he's still out there competing. Again, it's inconsistent at times, but he has been able to make it through this season and do pretty well. Overall, I think that I can't imagine anybody's opinion of him would have lowered too much. And then he's played particularly well against Detroit.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of those things where in the offseason, you get into free agency and a team signs a guy and you're like, oh, that's interesting that, they signed him. And then you go, did they play last year? Yeah. Oh yeah. That guy had 130 yards against them. No. Oh, okay. There's one of those, they may not look at the entire tape. They may be like, that guy really burned us. We like him. We're going to try to bring him in. And so those two games are going to stand out a little bit more than the rest anyway. So I think maybe there was a little bit of an audition going on. Caleb Williams maybe auditioning a little bit for Ben Johnson, and then Ben Johnson showing off a little bit, maybe for Bears brass, because he came in with some heat, right? I mean, they moved the ball pretty well all game long. This game, obviously, they put up some points on Thanksgiving. They had the trick play where that was scouted off of some Bears film. I mean, that's flexing a little bit.
Well, the first time they played the Lions, right, on Thanksgiving, they came out hot. They were really good. And then the offense cooled off in the second half, right? The Bears came back and they made that a real good game. This game, started off hot. The offense did, and the offense kept it going. So you can tell, again, you're looking for coaches that can take a game plan and kind of tweak it, see what happened before, what worked before, what didn't work before, and kind of tweak that. And we saw, here we are with Ben Johnson and his offense. He made sure he made some adjustments, and he kept the foot on the gas. And I thought it was going to be 50 points, the way that game was going. It probably could have been, but they kind of took the foot off the gas there late. And that's, when you have guys like Jimmy Johnson now on Fox, and you guys like Dave Wannstedt local, these are like hardcore old school defensive minded guys, right? They're saying the Bears have to go offense.
Rex Ryan said it,
yes.
a while ago.
Yes.
And Rex Ryan was calling Ben Johnson the next Bill Walsh. Like, this isn't just me. This isn't just me liking this guy. Like, I mean, like, a lot of people are on this now, and yeah, maybe it took a minute, but this is becoming more and more like just the obvious in-your-face solution. So hopefully the Bears make that obvious call. But I'll turn it over to you. What'd you have?
I'm going back O-line, and this is kind of in the vein of, you've talked about this a lot during our time on the show here, but Mark Potash at Mark Potash, the Bears' current offensive line of Larry Borum, Jake Curran, Coleman Shelton, Matt Pryor, Darnell Wright is the 21st different starting combination this season.
Not starting. Just combination.
Yes, different combination. And the 63rd different combination in 3 years under Ryan Poles. 63 different combinations in less than 3 years. Again, injuries happen. It's going to happen there, but that's a lot. It's not just injuries, though, when you're looking at Ryan Poles' tenure here. Some of the guys that he signed and he plugged in just weren't very good. He had to replace them. That's terrible.
Yeah, starting line combinations, we've talked about this a couple times on the show, but in 2022, there were 9. In 2023, there were 9. And then in this year, there's been 6. And then there will probably be a 7th if Jenkins can't go this week, although who knows? And again, I got a little bit on Jenkins here coming up, but there has been a combination of Borum, Jenkins, Shelton, Pryor, Wright. So
Okay.
if Jenkins plays, that would be a repeat. But if they have to go with, say, Borum, Curran, or however you say his name, Shelton, Pryor, right? That would be the
New one.
7th. So they are below the number of starting combinations, but that number of combinations that they've used throughout games is pretty consistent with what they've had the last couple of years. I mean, it might even oddly be more chaotic this year than it has been in the past, just because they're so far away from what their projected starting lineup was. I have their projected starting lineup as Braxton Jones at left tackle, Tevin Jenkins at left guard, Ryan Bates at center, which has not happened. Nate Davis at right guard, which obviously he's off the team, and then Darnell Wright at right tackle. And, Jones missed a couple games with, various injuries. So you had Borum have a couple starts. Amagazi got some reps. Amagazi got a start, and now you're back to Borum, and then Darnell Wright missed one game, so you had Matt Pryor kick out. Bates made a couple starts. Matt Pryor's been pretty consistent. Shelton's had the whole year at center. It's chaotic, and that chaos leads to a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of missed assignments. I mean, offensive lines have to work together. And so it's not a shock to me that this offensive line has given up a lot of pressures and a lot of sacks, because they're not playing together.
Yeah.
And the talent's lower, but even if you have a lower talented group, if they're playing together all the time and they have good scheme, which they haven't had either, they can produce. But this is exactly what you would prescribe to your enemy.
Yeah, one of the hires next year I'll be most excited to see is a new O-line coach. I've not been a fan of the current guy since he's really, I started really digging into some of the tape from his first year there, Chris Morgan. They do weird things in both the run game and the pass game. Not all of it is him. Some of it is just the scheme that he's coaching the guys up based on the play calls, but some of the designs, some of the way they just can't pass off stunts early in the season. They've gotten better this year as the year went on, but early in the year, they were missing stunts. They were misplaying stunts so often. You're like, what are they even doing? And then, of course, this last game with the rookie Amagazi, his kick step was all over the place. It's like that's like something that should not be confused. I mean, that's a guy in his head, obviously, and he never should have been out there in the first place. But just very strange. So earlier today, Thomas Brown, interim head coach, mentioned, because he was asked, well, why was Borum active this week and not Amagazi? And he said, because Borum's more versatile. With the injury they had there with Kramer, they made to shuffle a few things around there. So luckily Borum was active, because when Braxton went down, had they went with the same plan last week, they would have threw Amagazi back out there. And I don't want to see that.
I mean, when I saw the inactives, I tweeted that out. I was like, okay, like this is an admission that you didn't need that tape last week, but you got it, and now it's like, oh, okay. You need Larry Borum to take those snaps. I mean, he's made too many starts in this league to not just count on him. And I understand that you might have been upset with him and thought he was being indifferent when he got in the game, and maybe he's being pouty. I have no idea. I'm just totally projecting or whatever, but he needs to be the guy that fills that role. There's just no excuse for it. So it's a lot. It's a availability is a skill. Like these guys have to be more available, and in the future, that's got to be a concern. So let's move on to the guy that they are trying to protect, Caleb Williams, for Caleb's corner. Caleb had a pretty decent volume day here, 26 of 40 for 334 yards, threw another 2 touchdowns, no interceptions once again. That interceptionless streak is now the 7th best all time in the NFL. Kind of insane. 326 pass attempts. A few more, he'll move up one spot, and he's got a shot. The rookie record is his, and the franchise record is his. But if he can get through the rest of the year unscathed, and they're this kind of volume, he could approach the record or take it into next year if he needs it. Kind of crazy. Again, I don't think it'll happen. It just seems insane, but I keep saying that, so you never know. Also took 2 sacks for 11 yards, scrambled 6 times for 34 yards. He is credited with a fumble lost on the Roma Dunze exchange. That always goes on the quarterback. So
I think he
that's
had two. They gave him the one with DJ too.
but that one was recovered. So that
Yes.
was not a fumble loss. That was
Lost.
just
Correct.
a fumble. And then the 334 yards takes him up to 3,271. So officially a 3,000 yard game, or 3,000 yard season. 3,000 yard game would be pretty impressive. That is the sixth best season of all time. And he is still within shouting distance of Eric Kramer. He could break that record, has to average 284 yards per game over the next 2 games to beat Eric Kramer. So it's not out of the question, but certainly a top 3 season finish. It looks like it's a good possibility here. And he threw his 4th 300-yard game, which ties a Chicago Bears, not an NFL, a Chicago Bears franchise record that he now shares with Billy Wade, Jay Cutler, Mitchell Trubisky, and Brian Hoyer somehow. So that's a long Caleb update. I just wrote the stats article update, so I pretty much just told you exactly what I'm writing tomorrow. But there's a lot there because we're getting towards the end of the year, and it's starting to add up into something that I think is at least noteworthy.
I mean, he has put us some good numbers. So whenever you talk stats on social media or in comment section at the site, right, or you always get from people saying, "Oh, it's garbage time stats." You know, that's their big argument. And you look at this game, right? The Bears got blown out, right? It was a blowout, but Caleb had 200 yards passing in the first half, right?
Right.
You got to look at these numbers, like the Vikings last week, another blowout. At one point, did the Vikings play prevent? That's not in their DNA. Flores doesn't do that. So those weren't garbage time stats. Those were stats that going up still up against a good offense. I went back and looked at some of the numbers because I was curious. There were 2 games where you figure, okay, the Bears were not in this game at all. Like the Patriots game and the Cardinals game, they were terrible. Like so if you're going to look at some times where maybe that's garbage time, he had bad games. I think he combined for like 300 yards in both those games, right? So where are these garbage time stats? I mean, unless our definition is different than what I consider it and what the casual fan who's saying this is, to me, garbage time is you're down by a ton. The other team is playing prevent, pretty much what the Bears do, right? When the Bears play prevent,
Bears just do it normally,
and they just give up yards. I mean, I'm not seeing that with Caleb. I mean, Caleb's still going through his progression. He's still doing what he has to do. You know, he's still running the offense, and there are very few times this year where he's just able to do what he wants. Like how often have we just seen these easy checkdowns where there's no one covering the middle of the field because they're just playing deep zone? It doesn't happen. You know, they're still playing against Caleb. He's coming back. I mean, how many 1-score games were this team in early on? You know, so there aren't these garbage time stats that these people just want to make up and say, well, that's the reason why his numbers are good. His numbers are good because, you know, he's doing what he has to do. But like you say, the bars on the floor, the numbers may be good, but they're not that good. You know, there's a lot of room to grow here, but that's what you expect out of a rookie.
Yeah, I mean, I would call them overall solid numbers.
Solid,
I mean, that's the point. I mean, he's being talked. There are some out there that seem to want to talk about him like he's having a terrible season, and the actual numbers don't really back that up. And so then they say, well, yeah, but it's all this garbage time stuff. I mean, they're not watching the games if that's what they're seeing or saying. And then I just, there seems to be this desire to give a purity test on Bears stuff, but yet is there any like comprehension of what other quarterbacks are faced with? You know, this idea that other quarterbacks that have put up stats don't have games like that, or also like, you know, this like, well, those aren't real yards because they're not this way. And then we're just going to pretend like all of Drew Brees' yards were, you know what I mean? Like, what is this? Of course there's, you know, Drew Brees didn't have a defense, so he was constantly in shootouts or, you know, whatever. Like there's all this, there's context everywhere if you want to put it, but at some point you just have to kind of look at it and say, well, in terms of Bears history, here's where he ranks. I'm just putting numbers out there, guys. Yeah. In terms of the history of the NFL, this is the 7th longest interceptionless streak ever. You can get angry about a number and tell me that, well, he's not throwing it accurately so the defense can't. Somebody said to me today, because I put that number out there yesterday. Somebody said to me today that he's overthrowing and underthrowing balls so that the defense can't even get him. And I'm thinking, overthrown footballs get picked off all the time. That's like kind of the definition of like what happens is a ball gets underthrown or overthrown, and so it gets picked off. I don't know where people come up with this to try to, I don't know, correct this cognitive dissonance that they have in their head, but just view it for what it is. They're just their numbers. They're good in the context of the Chicago Bears. They're kind of solid for a rookie NFL quarterback. And there's a lot of things that he can build on that I think are really strong foundational pieces.
A lot of fans were spoiled by watching CJ Stroud last year. That is now their mental, their normal for a rookie is something like CJ Stroud does. That doesn't happen very often. Plus there's a lot of part of it where they just don't like Caleb. I mean, that's kind of been part of that. There's been a lot of that out there, and look, it's not just the Bears fans; it's other fan bases just kind of like taking shots, just unnecessary shots because they just don't like him on a personal level. Which, whatever, it is what it is. That's kind of how people are. But like I said, the context of what he's doing is pretty good. And look, we all thought coming in, right? Not just us. A lot of people thought that this was one of the better situations for a rookie quarterback ever, right? The way that it looked, we all saw what was going to happen here. We all saw it on paper. That clearly was not the case. There's some problems here. A lot of it was coaching driven because of the problems with Matt Eberflus screwing up late game situations. Shane Waldron had some issues. We all thought the Waldron hire was going to be good, and that, of course, was wrong. So now everyone's saying, well, you guys said this in the beginning of the year, or this is what everyone was preaching about. Okay, well, things change. Clearly this was not the best situation. There's just some talent in the roster, but it just didn't click for whatever reason. And the fact that Caleb is still putting up decent numbers in the midst of all this, like Bill says, he's on his third OC, right? Because Thomas Brown is the head coach, so he has a new OC, so he's getting different voices at different times in his ear about different things. It's all the same coaching staff, but still, you're hearing the language from someone different. It's not always the same thing. So that can be good for anyone, especially quarterback, because that's your most important guy. You got to have that good relationship with the head coach, with the play caller, and Thomas Brown seems to have. His early games that he called seem to be better than what he's called the last few weeks. Maybe it's because he's got too much on his plate. Maybe it's because he's not used to calling plays from the sideline. But whatever reason, it's been an issue. Caleb's kind of dealing with that, and he's kind of, I want to say he's thriving because his numbers are pretty damn good.
Yeah, I think hopefully, a year from now we'll look back and just be like, oh, okay. It all fell into place. It all makes sense. This needed to change, this needed to change, and now we go, right? I'm hopeful that the early part of this episode, this conversation that we're having about with head coach, the alternate universe is that Hail Mary falls down, to the ground. Tyreek Stevenson just continues to taunt the fans or whatever. And, the Bears get out of that game. It sort of holds the team together. It doesn't break them. Right. They win more game. They're into that easy part of their schedule. They win some games, and they kind of cobble together a decent season. Eberflus comes back. Right. And he just kind of becomes an anchor on this team, whereas he's gone. And now you can finally reset with the right coaching staff and move forward, in a positive way. More painful for this year. It didn't need to happen, but now because of the decision to bring him back, so there's ways that this season could have gone that may have just been really kind of a bummer, over the next few years. And so maybe, hopefully, you got that anchor off your back, and now you can go. So let's move on to caught up in a numbers game stats. I'm going to start, Lester, because I feel like we've been doing a lot of O-line talk, and I have an O-line stat that relates to your tweet. So Tevin Jenkins has made 14 starts this year. Pretty good. He's made 9 finishes.
Oh, yeah. And
if I want to really say it, it's actually only been 6 finishes, but there's been 3 games where he's been pulled because they're playing the last series with other guys. And I didn't want to do that. That felt cheap. But he has made 5 starts that he has not made it to the end of the game with. I've seen a lot of people say, love to see Tevin Jenkins back. We love Tevin Jenkins. Tevin Jenkins on a team-friendly deal. Tevin Jenkins on, like, I see people saying he might be the best guard available. We got to bring him back. When he's playing, there's no one better. He's not coming back, guys. Like this, he needed to really make a very healthy and competitive campaign known in his contract year. I respect him for making as many starts as he has, but not finishing that many games in a football season. The play early on wasn't very good. I think he got a little better at some point, and has played pretty good football when he's in there. But this is not a resume that Ryan Poles, or if Ryan Poles is replaced, would bring him back for.
Yeah, Brad Biggs was on the score earlier this morning, and he said that the way he phrased it, it was a report. I'm not sure, he didn't really say he had a source, but he said it's highly unlikely the Bears are going to bring back Tevin Jenkins next year. I think he mentioned Jenkins has missed time with 5 different injuries this season. Wow. Just different things. I mean, it's like if there was like a bad, if you have a bad knee, you know, that's a thing you deal with. But 5 different things kind of popped up. You know, is it unlucky? Yeah, there's a shade of being unlucky to this, but you know, like you said, at some point, yeah, look at the player, look at the contract. You know, he's going to want to maximize his deal, and I think the Bears at this point look at him and say, yeah, it's not going to be here. I would not be surprised they offer him something. Or if they do one of the things, they say, hey, you know, go see what you got. Bring it back to us first, just to kind of check in before, you know, we move on. But, you know, I don't think you can count on him as a starter next year.
I don't see it. I mean, I'd be willing to bet money he's not back.
And I'm such a fan. I like him. I like him out there. I like what he does. It's just not working out.
No, I think there's just enough there that you just can't cut. And we just talked about 21 different combinations that are playing on the line this year. You know, another 6, 7. You know, depending on Jenkins' health this weekend, this Thursday. You know, it's just too much instability, and you can't re-sign a guy that you can't count on. I mean, it was already pretty dangerous to count on him and Nate Davis if you had concerns about Nate Davis manning both of those guard positions. And, you know, we've seen how that worked out. So when I was updating my chart, there's so many Jenkins / other person on split snaps for a game. And I thought, this is crazy. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like this. A player an offensive lineman not being able to finish that many games. I have no earthly idea how I would ever go back and find, there's no way, it takes too long. You got to go game by game. It takes way too long to map this out. I've been doing this for 3 years. I'm not going to go back any further. But I have to imagine that's got to be a record.
Yeah, that has to be close. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure who tracks that. I'm sure there's someone out there tracking it, but I would interesting to see what happened there. But yeah, he's it's too bad because there was such high hopes when he was picked. You know, of course he had the position shuffle. I'm sure kind of stunted some of his development a little bit there, but you know, they're going to move on. I mean, it's and look, it's going to happen, right? Because this is the Bears' luck. He's going to go somewhere. Much like, you know, Mark Colombo, and I'm dating myself. Mark Colombo back in the day could not get on the field for the Bears at all. Injury after injury after injury. Bears finally cut him. Went on to the Cowboys, had a very successful season or career playing in Dallas where he barely missed a game. So it's going to happen with Tevin Jenkins because that's just what happens with the Bears.
I mean, if that's the case, then we start looking into the medical staff of what's going on there. So,
right.
What'd you bring on?
So my number is the number 9, and I found this. I'm going back to some Caleb stuff here. I saw it on a tweet from Eric Edholm, who does stuff for Yahoo, and it's NFL Research pulled this, and it's Caleb has now lost 9 starts when he threw those 0 interceptions, which is the most such losses in a single season since quarterback starts were first tracked in 1950. Making some more history, Caleb is. You know, this is a you know, 9 losses, 0 picks. What are the odds of that even happening? Like astronomical, right? I mean, that doesn't happen. That is a that those losses, of course, wins is not a quarterback stat. Here always fans always talk about, oh, the wins, so these losses aren't all on Caleb, but that's terrible. That points to a lot of problem here with Ryan Poles' rosters.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about with toxic differential plus and how important turnovers are. I mean, every coach that you've ever seen in your entire life in the game of football preaches taking care of the football and taking it away on defense. Like that's just the most fundamental thing that there possibly is, right? And so you see no interceptions from a quarterback, and you assume that the team is probably doing quite well because you're doing pretty well on that. Now in this game, they lost 2 fumbles. So that's, there's 2 turnovers right there. It's not just interceptions where you can lose, but and the other thing is, and this is part of it that I think is kind of amazing, is that when you're down, you're forced into being more one dimensional. And, the Bears haven't really been able to run the ball anyway. And so defenses know and understand that the Bears are going to have to try to throw the football, and they're in negative scripts. And so they're pinning their ears back. They're coming after you, and then they're playing coverages, and, they're trying to turn the ball over. That's what happens in those situations. And you see, end of games or whatever, that's where a lot of those interceptions get piled up. And, maybe it's a tip ball, gets popped up in the air, or it's just an errant pass because you're trying to force it. And he still remained interceptionless. Like that's the other part that no one's really talking about, is the degree of difficulty actually goes up a little bit, particularly when the games are closer, because they've been forced into these negative scripts where they know that they're going to have to pass. So I mean, I don't want to be out there saying like, look how great he is because of this stat, because I think that there's a lot of nuance to it, but I don't think it's worthless. I think there's something there that he really has taken to that coaching, even if it was somewhat misguided. And I don't necessarily agree with like, don't ever turn it over. Like that's no way to play, particularly for Caleb Williams. But I think there's something to him protecting the ball like this.
I mean, it's in there. I mean, if the one thing that Coach Flus put in his head was, be smart with the football, if that's the one thing he takes him throughout his career, and he's not going to take some of these unnecessary risks, there's a time to take risks. And I think that's something that's in his game. But, there's certain times, points in the game where you're like, yeah, I don't need to take this. I still want to see him be more willing to check down at certain points. But again, he's a rookie. These things will come with him. And Ben Johnson will bring the best out of him next year.
Ben Johnson will actually have hot reads and checkdowns. There's been plenty of plays where there wasn't anything for him to hot or to check down to. Like, and that's the thing that gets me. And reading your column every week, you can
this is the thing that kind of gets me where like I have some discussions about sacks. For some reason, whenever I get tagged in sacks about Sack Watch, it's someone that doesn't really watch all the Bears games. So like I have the context behind it. So I'm pretty confident in what I'm saying. Like you said, there are several times early in the year he did not have a hot. There was not a receiver. There was no check down. It was max protect, and no one leaked out. There was just nothing. He had to take the sack. There were so many times. It's just maddening. And this is one of my early complaints with Shane Walden was, how do you not have this built in? Like, how are they not there? And then like you start hearing some of the national guys pick it up, and you're like, you understood why Waldron had to be let go, because some of his schemes and some of his route combinations and his spacing is just like, how the hell did he have such a successful run in Seattle? It was just, it's wild.
And remember, the passing game coordinator is now the head coach, and the passing game coordinator had something to do with those route concepts all year. I know we would like to just believe that the Thomas Brown was going to just be, better, but he has to take some of that blame early on for some of those passing game concepts too. That's the. I know people thought there was just going to be a magic switch that was going to be flipped, but you remove the negative and now it becomes a positive. But he was part of that, the bad too, right? All right. Well, we're going to take a break, but before that, a very quick message from our friends at Underdog Fantasy.
Very quick does not fit with this, but I'm going to get through it here. So Get it up here. I'm so flustered now because you said quick. Underdog is the place to play if you're a sports fan looking to win money while watching sports. Over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won. Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in all your favorite athlete performances. Compete against other players just by selecting higher or lower on 2 or more player stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. Turn every touchdown into a win with Underdog. Think Caleb Williams will rack up higher than 300 passing yards again? Maybe Keenan Allen will get higher than 100 yards receiving again. Click on some entries for a shot to win real cash prizes all season long. Underdog has fun games like Champions and Red Zone Rush, which is a game where you won't find anywhere else. You simply pick whether or not a player will score a touchdown by swiping right or left. Plus, your entry will be automatically boosted with a 51% profit boost. Just sign up today with Underdog and deposit with our promo code is CITY, C-I-T-Y, and you're going to get $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. Underdog, it is fun and simple. And this week, the Bears have a short week. Seahawks, Thursday night football. And those Thursday games, they're always tough to predict. So that might play in the Bears' benefit because maybe they'll win for a change and put up some good stats. So just pick some stats. You can win 1,000 times your money. Higher, lower on things like rushing or passing yards, receiving yards, touchdowns, and so much more. Just download the app today and use our promo code CITY again, C-I-T-Y, $1,000 bonus cash. That easy. Download the app, promo code CITY, $1,000 bonus cash right now. Every player, every touchdown, just select higher or lower on Underdog. Now the disclaimer: 18 plus, 19 plus, Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus, Colorado for some games, 21 plus, Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, that is going to be 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or you're going to text Next Step to 53342. If you're in New York, you're going to call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY, or you can text HOPE-NY to 467369.
I mean, just so quick. Absolutely.
That may have been a record, though. I think I got
it. May have. We're gonna. It's like timing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. People are gonna start taking bids. So, all right, stick with us after the break. We will do everybody's favorite segment, the Three Bears. All right, Lester. Three Bears, hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. I actually felt like these categories you could pick it. It wasn't that hard, right? There's some actual fun stuff to pick from here. Let's start with the hot. Who you got?
Mine's a hot bowl. It's a little sarcastic.
Oh,
I'm going to go with that guy, Zach Pickins, for his first career sack. He had a half sack a year ago, but this was his first full career sack. He also had 4 tackles, but third round draft pick, 64th player overall selected in the draft in his draft last year. Finally got a full sack. I would expect more from a guy drafted 64th overall to be a bigger contributor. This is a miss of Ryan Poles that I don't think is talked about enough, Zach Pickens. But he got Dexter, of course, in the second, who has been pretty good. But Pickens, a round later, he's been pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, you and I have a little group chat with some people, and there were some people that were very high on Dexter, and then there was some tape that came out that showed him have a slow get off, and then not everybody, a lot of people shifted to say, well, I actually like the Pickens pick much better. And I'm worried about Dexter. I don't like it. And then, okay. Like I'm not grinding, defensive line tape like Jacob Infante or anything like that. Right. Like they pick the guys, we'll look into them. Right. Like, I don't know where these guys are going to be, but I thought Dexter's the guy that has the ceiling here. Like it's very clear why he was rated ahead. He's got the ceiling. I'm not worried about this tape here. Pickens was the guy that was like, okay, we'll see. That it's not really jumping off the screen to me, but he hasn't showed much, right? He's been a pretty big disappointment. That sack he certainly gets credit for it. It was a little bit of a trip. It's it's not one that you would put up on your highlight reel. I
Well,
don't
he
think
might, because this is only
he
one.
might, because it's his first full sack, but it wasn't the cleanest
Yeah.
sack that I've ever seen in my life. So good for him. I like your tongue in cheek selection this week. I'm going to go Keenan Allen. 9 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown, including that big explosive play touchdown that he had. I mean, we all like Keenan Allen, but that's a fantastic game from him, and he's really come alive. And I think when Thomas Brown took over play calling duties, and then when he took over head coach responsibilities, I think that there was a lot of thought that, oh, okay, well, now we won't see the passing game run through Keenan Allen anymore. They'll realize that they need to run this passing game through Rome Odunze more and DJ Moore. And it's actually been the opposite. I feel like it's gone up more to Keenan Allen. So maybe Thomas Brown was the Keenan Allen patron the whole time.
I'm pretty sure you're correct. I saw a tweet earlier today. I forget who it was from. If I wish I could remember, but I think they tweeted that since Brown has taken over, his target share is like 34% increase or something like that. Whatever the tweet was, and again,
34%.
It went up. Whatever it was, his target usage has gone up since Brown took over. But I mean, if he's producing, I mean, and then one down the sideline, I mean, he left those guys. I mean, he's never been known for his speed.
Even in leaving there, that was impressive.
Yeah.
And it was it's a young corner.
There may be something here where the injury affected him more than we thought. The plantar fasciitis, it just was bothering him. It was a lingering thing, and maybe it affected his conditioning. Look, I like Keenan Allen, and I think if he sees the writing on the wall, the Bears obviously stink this year. He's talked about be willing to come back, but then after this game, he kind of, it's open again. Who knows what'll happen here? But I would not be surprised that if he has an offer on the table to come back next year, because you need 3 receivers in the NFL. You have a guy in your roster. We're talking about Ryan Poles again now with Tyler Scott, a 4th round selection. He's really done nothing. So behind your top 3 receivers, you have no one. So you're going to have to sign a guy anyway. You may as well offer Keenan Allen some money if you think he may be in your plans. Then next year you come in and now he's your slot guy again. And, I think it's worth it if you can get a good deal here for all parties involved.
Yeah, I think it'd have to be pretty contingent on him being excited about coming back. So I think that the hire is pretty important, right? I mean, this hire is going to be a big deal. Who's going to be the head coach here? Who's going to be calling plays? Because even if it's not Keenan Allen, who is going to want to come into this offense? And if you hired, I'm sorry guys, but if you hired Mike Vrabel, you're not going to get a lot of offensive players lining up to want to play in Chicago, right? And so, the coach does have a difference, because people are going to get excited because they want to play in a high volume offense, because they're going to put up stats that are then going to get them paid on their next contract. That's exciting for guys. That's a lot of how this works. So, man, there's a lot going on here. All right, flip it around. Cold Bowl, what do you got?
So the Bears defense, right? It seems like every single time the Bears are in a situation where the offense is going to go up there and hard count you, the Bears are the only team that falls for that. Every time. As soon as it comes up, I say to myself, this is a hard count situation. The announcers say it's a hard count situation. I assume the Bears are going to jump. And, of course, the Bears jumped again. Austin Booker did this last week. Every time, where is the discipline? I mean, how hard is it to look at the friggin' ball and just not jump when the quarterback's saying the stuff they're saying? It's just gobbledygook. It means nothing. They're not going to snap the ball. Everyone knows it. And the Bears fall for it every time. So my cold bowl goes to all the morons that are jumping off sides when everyone knows they're not going to snap the ball.
Well, and particularly when you're at home, you have the crowd that is making a lot of noise when your defense is on the field. So you shouldn't be influenced by the cadence.
Yes.
The only thing that you should be looking at anyway as a defender is the ball, right? That's what you move on the ball movement. Nothing else should impact you. They're doing little tricks behind the line to try to get, jumping with motion, trying to get you to jump. Like, that's not your concern. You just look at the ball. That's fundamental, right? Like, that's stuff that's been out there forever. it is amazing that professional football players can still get tricked, right? I mean, it's one of those things that you play football at any level, it's there, right? False starts and offsides, pre-snap penalties, right? It's part of the game. And you think like, oh, that just gets cleaned up. And by the time you get as a pro, that never happens. But it still happens, man. Like it still happens. It's undisciplined when it becomes a trend, which it has in Chicago. So I like that. I thought you were going to talk about the 3rd and long. I mean, how many 3rd and longs is this defense? This defense is supposed to be so freaking good and have like so many good secondary players. You get in 3rd and long and you can't get off the field. The number of times, I mean, I have no math to back this up, but it has just been a frustrating year watching this team because they can't get off the field on 3rd and long.
I shared that on social media yesterday watching the game that the Bears, it's not true, but the Bears must lead the league. Like if there was someone
trying to be up there.
And the worst thing is a lot of times these aren't like long passes, right? These are like short crossing routes where
that's what you want.
And rallying 100 yards and no one tackles them. Is like, Jesus Louise, what are we doing here? Get off the friggin' field. Yeah, the Bears have been horrible on 3rd down. 3rd and longs is just their bugaboo all year. It's just, Eric Washington is not a very good play caller, apparently. The Eberflus was a little better in that regard, even though Flus wasn't doing very good either. But Washington's he's a little worse.
The backup play callers, mixed bag, to say the least. How's that?
Yeah.
All right, cold bowl for me, and this hurts me. This hurts me, Lester.
Uh-oh.
It's got to be Rome. 2 fumbles. I know that the one is credited to Caleb on the exchange, but that to me looked like Rome's issue of not being able to secure that ball on the handoff, and then had the other fumble down the field after a nice catch. I mean, man, he catches that ball and all of a sudden he just shot out of a rocket, right? Like the speed that he plays with, like it jumps off the field. And it was such a exciting and play in the moment. And then he loses the fumble. And so that's 2 lost fumbles against a team where you got to pretty much play perfect. Like if you're going to keep pace with them, you're going to have to score every time you get the ball. And you turn the ball over twice early in the game. It was pretty much over at that point. And so again, Rome's my guy. I'm excited about Rome. There's, I'm not jumping off the Rome train here, but he absolutely deserves this cold bowl.
Yeah, it's a good pick. He did have the nice play later on in the game on the 4th down where he went up and got the ball, but overall it wasn't his best game. I agree with you. The jet sweep bobbled there. It looked like it was on him. Caleb took blame for it in his presser today, which is what you want to have your quarterback do. He's not going to throw his players under the bus. So that was kind of interesting to hear. I was curious to see if I didn't catch the Rome's any audio from him, but I was curious to see if what he would have said. I'm guessing he would have took blame because that's just what seemed like they would do for each other. But yeah, Rome had a rough one, but I looked at his stats today. He's close to 50 catches, not over now.
51.
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at a pretty solid rookie year. Does he still have a chance at the rookie receiving record? Is he still in that mix?
He needs a fairly solid finish to get the reception record, the franchise reception record. Yep. Yardage, no, that's not a thing. Harlan Hill's got him, so it's not going to happen. But
is it 61 is the rookie receiving record?
Yeah, I think so, and he's at 51. So he has to have good two finishing games here. But 61 or 63, I can't remember off the top of my head. I can look it up real quick. If you're willing to wait.
I think Forte at 63 and Mooney at 61 as the most receiver.
That is, it's correct. Mooney at 61, Forte at 63.
Man, so works once in a while.
He could do it.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention we at least need to give like a little ramekin worth of cold porridge, just a little bit, to Thomas Brown. 34-14. 6 minutes left in the 3rd quarter. You got a 4th and 7, and you kick a effing field goal. You're an interim head coach. You're going up against, and then he says like, well, yeah, we got to put up points up. We got to count on our defense. Your defense hasn't stopped them all game at that point. Like every time the Lions touched the ball at that point, they scored. That no, you can't do that. You got to go for it there. Like that's just it.
Well, he basically put it from a 3-score game to a 3-score game.
But yeah, anytime you can cut a deficit from a 3-score game to a after 3 scores. You got to do it.
There's a point in the game where you don't want to chase points, obviously, in the first quarter. Sometimes, I mean, obviously the analytics tell you differently, but as a lot of coaches don't take those chances early. But like you said, fourth quarter at that point in the game, why are we kicking field goals? You have nothing to lose. Your defense is proven to be Swiss cheese. Let's go for it. Plus, Caleb was on a pretty good heater there. I mean, he's playing pretty good. Let him roll.
Yeah, you have to understand the game situation, but you also have to understand the team situation. You have to understand who you are in this matchup.
Yeah.
And you're playing against a squad that is going to keep I mean, they didn't keep scoring, but like they're already up a bunch and you haven't stopped them yet. So I don't see how you can make that decision to just kick a field goal. And it ended up being the last points they got. So I don't know. Just seems kind of crazy to me that you would back off like that. A lot of stuff to criticize, but at least I think we were looking for those head coaching decisions from Thomas Brown. Like, is he going to get into these points in the game where we can say like, oh, well, he at least gets it where Matt Eberflus didn't. And we haven't really had those because they've been blowouts. So every game just hasn't been close since he's taken over. And so you really haven't had those like moments where you say like, okay, in-game coaching decisions, is he making better decisions than Eberflus? So I've been trying to look for them. And that one to me was one of the few times that's kind of stuck out. Like, yeah, you got to kind of know who you are there. So anyway, I wanted to bring that up.
That's a good one.
Just right. Let's finish it off. Just right. Who do you got?
Just right. So last week, of course, left tackle was Karan Amagazi. We're just like, oh my God, it was just terrible, terrible game. This week, Braxton Jones was back in there. Again, Braxton Jones is a solid left tackle. I'm not sure what the future holds for him. I think that at some point you are going to look to bring in a premium draft pick. I mean, they got a first round pick next year. Looks like it could be top 10. You got Darnold right on one side. I'm not sure if they're going to go guard later, if they're going to go center at some point, but Braxton Jones he's a solid football player. He's not Joe Thomas. He's not Jimbo Covert, but he does his job when he's out there. He has his warts, we all know what they are at this point, but against the Lions, he held his own. He was pretty good out there.
I like that. Obviously he's hurt. He's out for the rest of the year.
Out for the year now. Yeah.
So that is something. It does sound like he avoided what was feared to be something a little bit more serious. Our guy Mason West, posted after the injury happened that he feared something to do with the knee that would have been a much longer recovery. Sounds like he avoided the injury and is dealing with more of a broken fibula. It's been a while since I've had anatomy, so I'm not going to get into the specifics. You can go read all that. I'm sure there's more than enough about the injury out there, but the recovery process is not 12 months like may have been feared if there was a torn ACL or something like that. And so that's the good news on Braxton Jones. You can hope that he's back and fully healed and can get back into football activities early on. So that's the deal there. That's, I think, a positive takeaway. I mean, in a bad situation. I mean, the guy's hurt. I hate to say it's a positive takeaway, but he'll obviously miss the last couple.
Well, it was
games.
Expected, like you said, it could have been
could have been worse.
And then the way they're saying now is, as long as there's no complications, she should be back in 4 months. So that puts them back well in time for camp. And again, I think they are going to look to make a move there at some point. At least better competition than Amagazi. Look, I hope Amagazi can be something for you, but early returns are not positive. Again, he's coming from Yale. He didn't really have much of an offseason because of the injury. Let's see how he looks coming into year 2. But whoever the GM is next year, massive investment in your O-line. It has to happen. And if Braxton Jones is bumped to the bench by a better player, so be it.
I know we've talked about it a little bit. I have to just say one more time, and then I'll put it to rest. The fact that Karan Amagazi was healthy and active this week tells you just how big of a massive screw up that was to put him in as a starting player, for the previous game. I cannot get over how colossal of a organizational failure that was, either from Ryan Poles or from this coaching staff, to expose him like that. His last start was against Dartmouth, Lester. Like there's no way, in a conversation, someone said, "Hey, it's December. Like that's more than enough time for him to have gotten up." No, absolutely not. He needed the full off season to have nutrition and strength and conditioning, and then work your way up into that in that off season, the summer program, and then you get into camp, you get into preseason games. Like this idea that yeah, you threw him in for a few snaps in these games at guard, and now all of a sudden, like I know he played a bit at tackle earlier in the year. It just seemed like such an insane thing to do. It was to me, it was just an organizational failure. I don't know if I put it in Poles 100%, or if you put it in Thomas Brown and Chris Morgan, or if they divide the blame pie evenly. It made me more angry this week, even more angry this week when it was they showed like, hey, yeah, he's a healthy and active. We messed up. It's like, yeah, you didn't need that evidence to do that. You should have known. I feel like I have been the most unwavering on this point, since the beginning, since the draft. I have not come off of it. I have not seen anything that would make me feel otherwise. And it makes me really upset for that young man, because now he has this exposure it's out there, man. Like that was national television. He was tackling guys to try to prevent. I mean, he could have gotten called for a dozen holds, right? I mean, he was so outmatched, and that makes me feel really bad for him, because he may have a path to a good NFL future, and maybe that'll motivate him or what. But that was irresponsible of the organization to put him out there like that. They just have to be lucky. They have to be very thankful that it didn't cost them Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
That's the only thing
he was blasting on that one when
real early.
Just it could have been bad. And now the discourse, of course, a lot of fans and media are asking, why was he taken in the third round if he was this much of a project? And it's like, maybe that shows a little arrogance from Poles, or thinking that, everything was going to be good and he can take this guy and kind of hide him. Or maybe he just thought his coaching staff would kind of coach him up. But like you said, coming off an injury, small school, everything screamed redshirt year for him. Well, if that's the case, then why is he coming in the third round? At the time, I didn't know him. Jacob said he's kind of where he was projected based on traits, but where the Bears were, and again, hindsight showing us, they shouldn't have took a guy off traits. They should have took a guy that was going to come and play some football for you.
Yeah, if you're the Ravens, or name an established team, that where you take the guy and you say, our plan is he's not coming off IR.
Yeah,
like we're stashing him. That's literally a red shirt year. We're stashing this guy. We're burning that pick because we don't need this guy this year. Those organizations can do that, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you're making that gamble. It was I felt like that at the time. It didn't make sense to me in this team build of where you were at. And that was the one that was always a lot more cocky to me than taking Torrey Taylor in the fourth, which everybody has a problem with apparently. But that one to me just didn't make sense. But I'm still hopeful that he can turn into something, but now you violated what the obvious path was for him and then exposed him. And so it made me even more mad. Like it made me mad that happened in the moment. And then the next week just like tore the scab off. And I was like even more angry. And I wanted to make sure we talked about it because it really is, somebody really should take some blame for that. So, all right, mine. I had a couple things written down. I wanted to make sure that we talked about Darnell Wright, which we already did. Again, just playing like we expect. And then I was going to give it to Caleb. The Lions are not a particularly good defense right now. They're really beat up. And so putting up over 300 yards in a game where you're in negative game script is, I expect that. He threw a couple touchdown passes, no picks again. Like, I guess I'm kind of expecting that at this point. He only took 2 sacks. He was under a lot of pressure. Yeah. I still think it's impressive how much he can avoid, when he gets those one-on-ones and he's able to make little moves and get out of it. I think it's really impressive. And so I wanted to kind of circle back to Caleb and say, heck yeah, man.
I like that, finishing on a positive note. Caleb, yeah, I mean, Caleb played like that's what we want out of him. We want him to kind of make plays when he has to with his arm and with his feet, and and like I said, just 2 sacks, which is much better than what he's been doing the last week. Still leading the league, but those I haven't had a chance to break them down fully, but we'll see what happens in the sack watch. But yeah, it was a good game, and that's what you want out of him. You want to see him do these things, and like you said, he's close now. He's got a chance. It's a long shot, but he's got a chance. Where he can kind of get that record to Eric Kramer's 38-38, and that would be unheard of as a rookie.
Be great. I'd love it. I mean, just nothing more than to put him on top there. So, all right. Well, that's all I have. I don't have any extra notes. Pretty much think I covered everything that I wanted to cover. Anything that you have?
No, I think we're good. I mean, it's holiday week. Obviously, we got a lot of games, football this week. Bears Thursday nights. There's games on Wednesday. I'm not a big fan of Christmas games on Wednesday, but there's a couple games there. Of course, it's going to be a lot of football here. So everyone have a safe and happy Christmas holiday here.
Yep, same sentiment. And then you and I are going to be back on Thursday night. We are doing the immediate post game on Thursday night. So if you are, I don't know, on the other side of the country and are already up, hang out with us. If you are other side of the world, I guess too, since we have a lot of international fans. If you like to stay up late, hang out with us. If you are like me and are going to require coffee, and let's see if I can get through it. Because I mean, we're going to be doing this thing. I mean, it's going to be from like 10:30 to 11. That's late, man.
That's
like
late
I don't, I don't see midnight very often. You're a night owl. I'm not so much anymore. So that'll be a challenge. But we'll maybe this will be good prep for New Year's for me. Let's see how close I can get to midnight. But we're going to be back doing that. Always a fun time to see how angry I can get directly after a game. So hopefully maybe they'll give us something to cheer for. Maybe it'll be the positive. Maybe this is the one they steal at the end of the year and break this losing streak. So
I tell you what, if the Bears win this one, we may have to think about taking over the post game, because then we may be the reason.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a thing. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and see you back here later this week. Bear down.
Thanks, guys.
All right. I only saw a couple comments. I'm coming down with a cold. Lester has to go Christmas shopping. Anything that we have to I will say, Chris, that those stats are in like 15 games. Stroud did miss a couple starts, so he put up pretty big volume numbers. But I understand, like, certainly the yardage isn't necessarily close. But and Stroud kind of come back to earth this year a little bit.
Right.
So, I mean, this is the thing we talk, it's not linear. The guys that get out to the fast starts aren't always the guys that are the best. And I mean, a lot of times they're not, right? Mac Jones going to be great. Mac Jones looks kind of terrible as a backup now. Right. So, I mean, I don't know. These guys have long careers, and everybody wants to have this settled in their, by October of their first year in the NFL. Like, it's like we never learn. Like we never learn from this stuff. But yeah. Anything else you wanted to go through? Pretty much good.
We're good. My dog's going nuts down there. My wife's already opening the door. You hear my ring going off. I think they're ready to go shopping. I got to go. I'm late this year on Christmas shopping. I got to go shopping tonight. So
yeah, you strike me as someone who's always late, though. So no,
that's true. That's true.
All right. Well, we'll get out of here, and we will see you guys back here Thursday night. I assume everybody's going to show back up on Thursday night and join us, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to spend your post game with us? We'll bring on coffee. So we'll see you then. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thanks, guys.